The first time I handed my mom the envelope, she didn't even glance at me. Without a word, she slid it across the table toward my dad, as if I was just another tenant paying rent at some boarding house I didn't belong in. "Good," she muttered, eyes fixed on her phone. "We were wondering when you'd finally step up." "Step up?" I thought bitterly. That was what they called it when I worked double shifts at the diner, scrubbing tables until my wrists throbbed, just so their electricity wouldn't get cut off in the dead of winter. It wasn't like they were strapped for cash. No, they simply decided that paying the bills was too dull a chore to bother with. That responsibility fell to me, their daughter who lived nearby. Week after week, for months, I trimmed the grocery list, skipped lunch without complaint, and told my son Eli we were having breakfast for dinner again, meaning toast, eggs, and maybe some fruit if it was on sale. He was 8, sharp enough to notice my plate was always lighter than his. "You don't like eggs anymore?" he asked one night, nudging a piece toward me. I smiled and said I'd had a big lunch, hiding the truth that all I'd swallowed was black coffee. When the final overdue notice arrived, I spent the whole night calculating how much I could spare without overdrawing my account. The next morning, I handed my dad the cash. He didn't even thank me, just shoved the money into his jacket pocket and grunted, "About time." That evening, bone-weary, I was ready to collapse on the couch with Eli when a rich, buttery aroma stopped me in my tracks. Sizzling steak. Following the scent to my parents' dining room, I froze in the doorway. There they were, my mom, dad, my sister Leah, and her fiancé, laughing around a table laden with filet mignon, mashed potatoes drenched in gravy, and wine that cost more than my entire week's paycheck. Surprise dinner for Leah. My mom chirped without looking up. She's had such a stressful week planning her bridal shower. We thought she deserved something special. I glanced down at my son, still in pajamas, clutching the empty cereal bowl he brought to bed because he was hungry. My dad caught sight of him and smirked. "Get him to bed," he said flatly. "Kids don't need late-night snacks. That just teaches bad habits." Leah laughed as she cut into her steak. "Besides, maybe if you work harder, you could actually afford proper meals for him. Can't blame Mom and Dad for having standards." The room seemed to spin. I wanted to scream, but my voice felt trapped deep in my chest. Without a word, I guided Eli back to our side of the house and closed the door behind us. I tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and sat in the dark, listening as champagne corks popped faintly through the wall. That night, as I lay awake hearing the clink of their silverware, something inside me hardened. I'd been bending, breaking, starving myself for people who only saw me as a source of money and a punching bag. In that moment, I realized they'd never view me as family. From now on, they'd see me as something else entirely. The next morning, I woke up calm, calmer than I'd felt in months. Not relief, but something colder, the peace that comes when you decide you're done bleeding for those who sharpen knives behind their smiles. I made Eli a proper breakfast, pancakes from scratch, while he sat at the counter, excitedly telling me about a science project he wanted to try. I smiled, savoring every word, because no matter what came next, my priority was him, not them. After he left for school, I sat alone at the kitchen table with my coffee, reflecting on every envelope I'd handed over, every shift I'd worked, every lie I'd told to hide the truth from my son. The humiliation from the night before burned fiercely in my chest, lighting a fire I couldn't ignore. I wasn't going to beg them for kindness anymore. I was going to make sure they understood what it felt like to have nothing left. I started small. I stopped picking up their calls unless they were about Eli. When Mom texted about rent, I ignored it. When Dad asked me to grab groceries, I replied with one word: no. At first, they thought I was joking. Leah even sent a sarcastic emoji with the message, "Come on, it's family." Family. That word sounded like poison in my mind. By week's end, my mom showed up at my door, waving an unpaid bill in my face, as if it were my personal failure. "You think you're too good to help now?" she snapped. "After everything we've done for you?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Like serving steak dinners while my son goes to bed hungry." "Yeah, thanks for everything," I added quietly. She looked at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking a language she couldn't understand. "That's for Leah," she said sharply. She's got real responsibilities, a wedding, a future. You're just here. Right, I replied softly. Just here, but not for much longer. That's when she realized something had changed. Her tone shifted into that fake sweet voice she always used to try pulling me back in. Don't be so dramatic. We'll figure something out. But I wasn't interested in figuring anything out. I wanted to end it. I began retreating quietly, in ways they barely noticed at first. I canceled the automatic payments I'd set up for their internet, water, and gas bills. I rerouted my paycheck to a secret account they had no clue about. I said no to their last-minute money requests. No to the endless drip of obligations that had kept me tethered to them for so long. Then I made sure they saw what I was capable of when my resources weren't lining their pockets. I started filling my own kitchen with fresh fruit, quality coffee, and steaks. Meals meant not to share with them, but to enjoy with Eli, right in full view when they stopped by uninvited. I let them watch as he bit into juicy watermelon while they muttered about being short on cash this week. That still wasn't enough. Not yet. This had become more than just withholding support. I wanted them to feel the very smallness, the neglect, the replaceability they forced on me for years. And the chance came sooner than I thought, in the whirlwind of Leia's wedding preparations. Leia's upcoming wedding was treated like a holy event in my parents' house. Every conversation, every errand, every dollar was dedicated to making her day perfect. My role, of course, was to smile and contribute financially, emotionally, physically, just like the beautiful, invisible older sister I'd always been. I waited until it was too late to back out. The venue was booked, the catering deposit paid, the dress hanging in my parents' spare room like a sacred relic. My mom even called me once, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, saying, "I know you've been difficult lately, but this is Leia's moment. Put the past behind you." I agreed. I let them believe I was on board. On the day of the final catering tasting, my mom and Leia sat at a fancy restaurant table, pretending they understood fine dining, while my dad scrolled through his phone. Leia, dressed in a white jumpsuit as if she were already the bride, glanced at me and said, "You're taking notes, right?" I nodded, scribbling something down. "Not the flavors," I said to myself, "but every condescending word she utters. We'll need champagne for the toast, Dad. The good stuff, not whatever Casey buys," she added with a smirk. My parents laughed like she'd just cracked the joke of the century. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m, putting my plan into motion. Every invoice, every contract for the wedding was under my name, because they'd been too lazy to handle it and had appointed me as their assistant. That meant every vendor went through me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I called a caterer, florist, and DJ. I canceled everything politely and got refunds where possible sent to my account. The rest I let go. Then I rebooked, not for Leia's wedding, but for a community fundraiser on the exact same day, at the same venue, an event sure filled a space with people my family couldn't stand. The venue owner didn't care about who was renting, as long as the payment came on time. And I paid in full, smiling all the while. On the wedding morning, I dressed Eli in his finest shirt and tie. We drove past the venue just as Leia arrived, her hair perfectly curled, her expression already twisting into confusion at the sight of a large banner draped across the front. Annual Neighborhood Outreach Banquet. People in casual clothes milled about, carrying trays of food, far from the white-draped elegance she had been promised. I didn't stop the car. I wanted her to walk inside and feel it, to realize everyone she invited was either puzzled or already leaving. I wanted her to hear the music that wasn't on her playlist, smell the food that wasn't on her menu. By noon, my phone was blowing up with calls. My mom's voice came through in frantic voicemails. "What did you do? Do you realize what you've done to your sister?" My dad's call followed. "You've ruined her life, you spiteful little." Then the line cut off. Eli and I spent the day at the park, eating sandwiches and laughing. I let my phone buzz silently in my bag until the battery died. That night, I opened my own laptop, the one I bought with my own money, and blocked every number of theirs. I didn't want to hear their pleading once the shock wore off. I didn't want to listen to the fake apologies or the bargaining. I had given them years of meals, money, and silence. In return, They showed me exactly what I was worth. Nothing. So I gave them the same. For the first time in years, my son didn't go to bed hungry.